The prior charge against the Acolyte is already in the record. The Brendok coven used force-based life creation, Mother Aniseya generating twin daughters without a biological father through a force vergence on Brendok in 148 BBY. And if you watched Revenge of the Sith, you know exactly why that matters. Palpatine, in that opera house scene with the red seats and the ambient tragedy, tells Anakin Skywalker that Darth Plagueis could use the midi-chlorians to create life. The implication, the one the entire scene is built on, is that this is singular, unprecedented. One Sith, one ability, the specific thing that makes Plagueis worth mentioning at all. The Acolyte places a coven of women doing exactly that power a century before Plagueis was presumably still taking notes from his master, and suddenly the legend Palpatine is describing isn't a legend, it's a documented practice. The Brendok coven worked that out through their own tradition, and did it in the Outer Rim while Plagueis was, by canonical implication, not yet born. That's the first charge. The case made itself. But there's a second charge sitting underneath it, more specific, more sustained, and damaging in a different way. The Brendok coven isn't just a misuse of Plagueis' canonical standing. It's a reproduction of another established Star Wars group, a group with its own confirmed history, documented powers, a specific character arc that spans multiple series and over a decade of storytelling, and a genuine claim to creative territory that the Acolyte walked into and quietly reoccupied. The Brendok coven is the Nightsisters of Dathomir. Same structure, different address, different name on the door, smoke recolored from green to black. Before the 6 counts, we need to establish exactly what the Nightsisters are. Every exhibit in this prosecution depends on that foundation being bulletproof. This audience will catch a lore error before the sentence finishes loading. Star Wars, The Clone Wars, Season 3, Episode 12, titled Nightsisters. January 7th, 2011, Cartoon Network. The 56th episode of the series overall. The setup. Darth Sidious orders Count Dooku to eliminate Asajj Ventress, his own assassin, deemed too powerful and therefore inconvenient to keep alive. Ventress survives the ambush, barely, and retreats to the one place in the galaxy where she still has standing, Dathomir, the planet she was taken from as a child. That episode is the canonical introduction to the Nightsisters. Here's the planet, here's the order, here's their leader. Dathomir is, in its canonical designation, a remote, neutral, and obscure planet in the Dathomir system of the Quelii sector, Outer Rim territories. Its star casts the surface in blood-red light. The vegetation is overgrown and twisted, gnarled root systems, dense canopy, treacherous swamps that swallow anything that falls in. The Den of Geek review of that episode noted that Dathomir had already made an appearance in the wider Star Wars universe before the Clone Wars, in Legends material. But its establishment as the Nightsisters' home, with its full canonical description and political function, arrives through the 2011 episode. It isn't a place anyone visits by accident. The galactic mainstream has written it off, and the people living there arrange that outcome deliberately. The people living there are the Nightsisters, their full canonical designation, an ancient order of magic-wielding women, a matriarchal clan, functioning as the effective government of their world. Academic analysis of Clone Wars world building, including Cambridge University Press source material, describes Dathomir without ambiguity as home to a matriarchy run by the Nightsisters. A Wesleyan University paper analyzing the show confirms Nightsisters, a clan of force-using witches that rule the planet. Dathomir is a matriarchal society. The Nightsisters are in charge. There is no Senate seat, no Republic jurisdiction, No Jedi oversight. They exist outside the framework of galactic governance by design, and they maintain that separation by making sure nobody on Coruscant has a strong reason to go looking. The men on Dathomir, Zabrak males, a separate species occupying a different area of the planet, are called Night Brothers. In the structural terms of Nightsister society, they are a servitor class. Recruited for specific combat assignments, used for the task, returned to their village when it concludes. They hold no authority. No male figure makes decisions within the Nightsister order. No male figure is consulted on governance, ritual, or the clan's responses to external threats. The arrangement is total. Women hold every position that involves power. The Night Brothers exist in clearly defined functional roles that don't include governance, and that distinction is enforced rather than incidental. Their power system operates through ichor, a luminescent green mist that originates beneath Dathomir's surface and permeates the planet's physical and spiritual ecology. Nightsisters channel it through ritual, not through the Jedi or Sith understanding of the Force. Mother Talzin made this distinction explicit in the canon. She isn't a natural Force wielder in the Jedi or Sith sense. Her power comes from dark magic, from techniques passed through generations of practitioners, from direct connection to the ichor specific to their world. The Wikipedia entry for magical ichor confirms it could be manipulated by shamans such as Nightsister Mother Talzin. The ichor enables manifestation of physical objects from nothing, psychological and physical alteration of other beings, and abilities that conventional Force training, whether Jedi or Sith, doesn't produce. Green is the signature. Green mist, green fire, green barriers, green light threading through ceremonies. The visual language of Nightsister magic is inseparable from that color, because the color is the ichor, and the ichor is the planet. Mother Talzin is the spiritual guide and formal leader of the Nightsisters. The Mother prefix isn't a nickname. Every canon source, the Clone Wars fandom wiki, the official Star Wars databank, the Darth Maul Son of Dathomir comic series, and the reference book Ultimate Star Wars New Edition, uses Mother Talzin as her formal designation throughout. It functions as the Nightsisters' equivalent of a title of office. She holds the spiritual and operational leadership of the Order simultaneously. The Clone Wars fandom wiki. Mother Talzin, the spiritual guide of Dathomir's Nightsisters during the Clone Wars, held enormous power on her homeworld and wielded the strange magics of the Nightsisters. The word spiritual guide is doing a lot of work in that sentence. This is someone whose authority is both religious and executive, who channels a tradition and directs it at the same time. Her abilities, confirmed across the Clone Wars run, go well beyond anything the Jedi Council considers normal. She can drain life force from another being through ritual. She used this directly against Count Dooku, who was one of the most powerful Force users alive at that point in the timeline. She physically and psychologically transformed Savage Opress. He was an ordinary Night Brother warrior before Talzin worked on him, and after the ritual, he emerged Force-enhanced, physically altered, and effectively a different category of being. The academic literature on Clone Wars describes this as turning him from a lean young warrior into a hulking killing machine. Then there's Darth Maul. After years of feral, shattered existence on a junk world, spider legs, broken mind, decades of festering, Maul was barely coherent. Talzin restored his sanity. Then she built him a fully functioning set of cybernetic legs from the remains of fallen battle droids. Not repaired, built. From dead machinery, through ichor-based ritual. She also demonstrated spirit-body separation and, across the Clone Wars run, showed the ability to cast invisibility over others, create green Force protection barriers, generate physical objects from ichor, and perform what the canon records as resurrection. And she can dissolve her body into green smoke. Season 4, Episode 19, Massacre. This is the episode where General Grievous leads a full droid invasion of Dathomir, executing the directive Dooku issued in retaliation for the Nightsisters' assassination attempts against him. Most of the clan dies. The battle is a genuine catastrophe, one of the more bleak sequences in Clone Wars run. The Nightsisters, who had survived on the edge of galactic awareness for generations, are largely wiped out in a single engagement. Talzin escapes. The mechanism: she transforms into wisps of green mist and disappears mid-confrontation, reappearing elsewhere. The Wikipedia entry on Talzin confirms she could transform into smoke and appearing from wisps of green mist, and used this specifically to escape Grievous after the Battle of Dathomir. Season 6, Episode 9, The Disappeared, Part 2, released March 7th, 2014. The same power appears during the confrontation with Mace Windu over a Force-sensitive kidnapping plot involving Jar Jar Binks, which is a real canonical event. 2 confirmed on-screen instances, 2 separate episodes 3 seasons apart, with the Wikipedia documentation confirming the ability is part of her established capabilities. Talzin's canonical arc extends well beyond the television series. The Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir comic miniseries, confirmed current canon, not legends, provides her final chronological appearance and her canonical death. She appears through the legacy of the Nightsisters in Star Wars Rebels, set approximately 5 years before A New Hope. Tales of the Empire on Disney Plus features the Nightsisters Mountain Clan. The Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor games both use Dathomir and its remaining Nightsister elements. The Nightsisters aren't a 2-episode concept. Between the 2011 debut and the current streaming era, they have sustained canonical presence across animation, comics, novels, and video games, over a decade of franchise real estate, consistently maintained. Dave Wolverton invented the Nightsisters in a 1994 Legends novel, The Courtship of Princess Leia. 17 years as a Legends creation, then canonization through Clone Wars in January 2011. Whatever prior claim they had in the extended universe, their inclusion in current Disney canon gave them the franchise-wide standing that Legends material doesn't carry. They've been part of the current canon record for 13 years. When the Acolyte arrived in 2024, the Nightsisters had prior claim to a specific piece of the franchise's imaginative territory, confirmed across multiple media for a long time. The Acolyte premiered on Disney Plus on June 4, 2024. Its present-day storyline is set in 132 BBY, 100 years before The Phantom Menace. Episode 3, Destiny, moves into a flashback set in 148 BBY, which is where the Brendok coven's primary activity takes place. The gap between that flashback and the Clone Wars, where Mother Talzin leads the Nightsisters, and all 6 of these parallels were first established on screen, is approximately 126 years. The Brendok coven predates the Nightsisters in the Star Wars timeline by 126 years. Brendok is a planet the visiting Jedi assumed was uninhabited. Their surprise at finding a community there isn't incidental to the plot. The Coven's survival depends entirely on the galactic mainstream having no reason to investigate an apparently empty world. Showrunner Leslie Headland confirmed in a Nerdist interview that Brendok's designation as a Force vergence location was a deliberate story choice, and the planet's apparent emptiness is inseparable from that choice. You put the Coven somewhere the Republic and the Jedi have no reason to visit. The isolation is load-bearing. The Coven is all female at the leadership level. 2 figures hold authority, both formally designated with the same title. Mother Aniseya is the primary leader. The official Star Wars databank describes her as the leader of a mysterious coven of witches on Brendok, who value their independence and the preservation of their beliefs and powers. Her partner and co-leader is Mother Coral. Mother Coral is a Zabrak. We are going to come back to that. Aniseya's confirmed powers, per the official Star Wars databank. Force push sufficient to overpower multiple opponents simultaneously. Direct mind control through consciousness possession. She incapacitated a Jedi Padawan by entering his mind. And the ability to transform her physical body into a cloud of black smoke. The databank entry confirms she possesses the ability to enchant a Jedi and transform her physical being into a mystical cloud of black smoke. She also created twin daughters without a biological father, using the Coven's Force framework, which they call the Thread, and a Force vergence on Brendok. The Thread is how the Brendok Coven conceptualizes and accesses Force power. Collider, covering the show, described it as a concept similar to the Force. Space.com's coverage confirmed. These witches talk of a thread that connects everything and everyone together, and which can be manipulated. The thread isn't the Jedi path, and not the Sith path. It's a tradition-specific access point to the same underlying power, accessed through ritual practice, and collectively stronger than individually wielded. The Wikipedia entry on Aniseya notes the thread's philosophy: collective power over individual possession.
If that sounds structurally familiar, a force-adjacent magic system specific to one isolated group, accessed through technique rather than conventional training,
with a visual identity tied to the group's unique practice. You've heard the Nightsisters' Ichor system described in a different vocabulary. Here is a practical exercise. 2 organizations. Both are all-female matriarchal societies with no male leadership. Both occupy remote planets that the galactic mainstream has either dismissed or assumed uninhabited. Both are led by figures formally designated Mother. Both can dissolve their bodies into smoke and rematerialize elsewhere. Both run formal initiation ceremonies in which members take oaths. Both manipulate life itself through force-based ritual. Both have a force power tradition accessed through technique and collective practice, rather than conventional Jedi or Sith training. Both are eventually found by Jedi. Both encounters go badly for the Coven. Corporate wants you to find the differences. The smoke is black instead of green. The planet is Brendok instead of Dathomir. The leader is named Aniseya instead of Talzin. The show is set 126 years earlier in the franchise timeline. That is the complete list. Sit with the timeline one specifically, because it's the funny one. The proposed differentiation isn't a creative innovation, it's a timestamp. This group is original because it appears in an earlier episode of the story, isn't a defense against structural reproduction. If someone handed you a cover version of a song and explained that it predates the original in the narrative sense because it's set in an earlier chapter of the same fictional universe, you'd recognize that the fictional timeline doesn't answer the creative question. The question is whether the underlying material is the same. Here it is. Screen Rant published an Easter eggs article about the Acolyte, a promotional piece, positive in tone, celebrating the show's franchise connections. In that article, discussing the Brendok Coven's ability to transform into mist, the writers described it as a unique force power that was previously used by the Nightsisters of Dathomir in Star Wars: The Clone Wars. They published that sentence without apparent irony. A unique force power that was previously used by another group. Screen Rant accidentally prosecuted this case in a puff piece about Easter eggs. The contradiction is in the same clause. Now, Mother Coral. The Night Brothers, the male servitor population of Dathomir, are Zabraks, same species as Darth Maul, recognizable by vestigial horns and facial tattoos. Within Nightsister society, Zabraks hold the lowest functional rung, recruited for combat tasks, returned to their village when the task concludes, granted no authority, no voice in governance, no standing within the clan's internal hierarchy. The Night Brothers are the workforce. The Nightsisters are the state. Mother Coral, co-leader of the Brendok Coven, is a Zabrak. In the Nightsister framework, Zabraks are the servitor class. In the Brendok Coven, a Zabrak holds the second highest leadership position. It's a genuine inversion of the structural relationship. The same two species involved, the same power dynamic, turned inside out. A Zabrak woman isn't merely present in the Brendok Coven. She's a mother. That is real creative variation. It's the most original thing the Acolyte does with this inherited material, and it deserves to be acknowledged as such. The Zabrak's social position has been recognized from within the Nightsister framework and then deliberately reversed. That's derivative creativity, which is a legitimate mode. Derivative isn't inherently an insult. But when every other structural element is reproduced without equivalent transformation, one genuine variation in 6 doesn't resolve the reproduction of the other 5. They change the Zabrak's social position. They change the smoke color. Those are the differences. Count 1. Matriarchal Force Cult. The Cambridge University Press material analyzing Clone Wars world building describes Dathomir as home to a matriarchy run by the Nightsisters. The Wesleyan University academic paper confirms Nightsisters, a clan of force-using witches that rule the planet. Dathomir is a matriarchal society. The Nightsisters are in charge. The structure is total. Not a female leader exists, but a fully female authority hierarchy with no male equivalent at any level. The Night Brothers hold roles that are functional, not authoritative. They fight. They don't decide. Every governance decision, every ritual determination, every strategic response to outside threat flows through the women of the Order. Academic analysis of the show consistently describes the Night Sisters as a matriarchal society in the formal structural sense, a system organized around female authority as a foundational principle rather than an incidental casting choice. The Brendok coven maintains an all-female decision-making structure across every scene depicted in the Acolyte. 2 female mothers hold all governing authority. When the Jedi arrive and negotiations begin, when the twins are assessed for force sensitivity, when the coven determines how to respond to the external threat, all of it flows through the 2 mothers. The official StarWars.com promotional feature on the show notes that Jodie Turner-Smith's character, Aniseya, leans into the duality at the heart of the series, as the coven's leader and the twins' mother, combining spiritual and familial authority in the same person. This is the same dual role Talzin holds in the Night Sister structure, religious leader and practical governor, combined in the person of the mother. Both groups are all-female hierarchies with a specific structural commitment to female authority as the organizational foundation. Both depict this across multiple scenes with consistent emphasis on the absence of male authority within the group. It's not that female leaders are unusual in Star Wars. They're not. It's that this specific configuration, a dedicated matriarchal order of force-using practitioners with a comprehensive all-female authority structure as a constitutional principle, exists in the franchise as a Night Sister characteristic. And then it exists again in the Acolyte. Count 2. Isolated Planet. Dathomir's isolation is load-bearing narrative infrastructure. The Night Sisters' survival across the final decades of the Republic depends on their planet being the kind of place the galactic mainstream has no strong reason to examine. Its canonical designation, remote, neutral, obscure, outer rim, isn't flavor text. The Clone Wars arc opens with Ventress retreating to Dathomir precisely because it's the one location where Dooku's reach doesn't extend and where she has standing. The planet's obscurity is the clan's survival mechanism, not a geographical coincidence. Brendok functions identically within the Acolyte structure. The Jedi arrival in Episode 3 is built on their assumption that the planet is uninhabited. The Coven's continued existence, their independence, their ability to raise the twins outside Jedi notice, all of it depends on Brendok remaining a blank entry in the galactic database. Hedlund confirmed in the Nerdist interview that the vergence designation was deliberate story architecture, and the apparent emptiness of the planet is inseparable from that architecture. You put the Coven somewhere the Jedi have no reason to visit. Both Covens end up found by Jedi anyway, and in both cases, the discovery initiates a confrontation that proves catastrophic for the Coven. The isolated planet isn't just a setting, it's a structural plot mechanism with the same narrative function in both stories. Protection achieved through anonymity. Protection that fails. Count 3. The Mother title. This is the most direct terminological parallel in the case. The title Mother, as the formal leadership designation for a matriarchal Force Witch Coven, appears in one place in Star Wars canon before the Acolyte. In established canon, the title functions as follows. The Clone Wars fandom wiki describes Talzin as Mother Talzin, the spiritual guide of Dathomir's Night Sisters. The reference book Ultimate Star Wars New Edition uses Mother Talzin as a formal name throughout. The Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir comic series, confirmed current canon, designates her consistently with the title. Comic Vine lists her as the leader of the Night Sisters during the Clone Wars and the mother of Darth Maul. The official StarWars.com databank treats Mother Talzin as her canonical identifier the way other entries use Darth or Grand Moff. The title encodes her position within the matriarchal order's hierarchy. It isn't elder, it isn't high priestess, it isn't matriarch. The specific word is mother, and the specific context is the leadership of a matriarchal Force Witch Coven in the Star Wars universe. The official Star Wars databank entry for the Brendok coven leader reads, Mother Aniseya is the leader of a mysterious coven of witches on Brendok. StarWars.com's promotional coverage refers to her consistently as Mother Aniseya. The coven also has a second figure formally designated Mother Coral, two mothers rather than the Nightsisters one, which is a variation in application. But the title itself, the specific word as the formal leadership designation of a matriarchal Force Witch coven, appears in the franchise twice. Both appearances are in this prosecution. Count 4, Dissolving into Mist. Massacre, Season 4, Episode 19 of the Clone Wars, is the canonical record of the Nightsister genocide. General Grievous leads a full droid assault on Dathomir. Most of the clan dies in the battle. Talzin escapes. The documented mechanism, she transforms into wisps of green mist and disappears before Grievous can capture or kill her. The Wikipedia entry confirms she could transform into smoke and appearing from wisps of green mist, and used this specifically to escape after the Battle of Dathomir. Season 6, Episode 9, The Disappeared Part 2, released March 7, 2014. The same power appears during the confrontation with Mace Windu. Two confirmed on-screen instances across two separate seasons with Wikipedia documentation of the ability and its green coloring. The official Star Wars databank entry for Mother Aniseya confirms she possesses the ability to enchant a Jedi and transform her physical being into a mystical cloud of black smoke. The same structural ability, physical dissolution into smoke, rematerialization elsewhere, with one visual modification. The color difference is real, and it deserves acknowledgement. Green is specifically tied to Dathomir's ichor, a world-specific magical substance. Green is the entire visual identity of Nightsister magic. Green barriers, green lightning variants, green mist in ceremonies, green light threading through rituals as the ichor rises from beneath the surface. The color isn't an aesthetic choice. It's the visual signature of a specific magical tradition with a specific planetary source. Black smoke does not carry those associations and registers as a different force mechanism. What the color change doesn't do is alter the dramatic function of the ability. The powerful leader of a Force Witch coven dissolves into smoke during a high-stakes confrontation with an external threat and rematerializes somewhere else. That specific narrative beat, performed by the powerful leader of a matriarchal Force Witch coven, appears in Star Wars canon for the first time in Season 4, Episode 19 of the Clone Wars. It appears in The Acolyte. The character type performing it, the context, confrontation with outside threatening forces, and the function, escape, evasion, demonstration of power, are consistent across both. The color changed. The bit remained. Screen Rant's Easter eggs piece described this ability as a unique force power that was previously used by the Nightsisters of Dathomir in Star Wars: The Clone Wars. A promotional article, positive framing, pointing directly at the prior source in the same breath as calling the power unique. When coverage from a sympathetic outlet in a promotional context acknowledges the prior source unprompted, the parallel isn't a contested interpretive claim. It's the default reading, available to anyone watching. Count 5. Initiation Rituals. Season 3, Episode 14, Witches of the Mist, January 21st, 2011. Asajj Ventress, having survived Dooku's betrayal and returned to Dathomir, undergoes reinitiation into the Nightsister clan under Mother Talzin. The ceremony is depicted on screen. Talzin asks whether Ventress pledges herself to the sisterhood, to the magics, and the old ways, and declares her reborn a Sister of the Night upon acceptance. Earlier in the Nightsister arc, the Water of Life ritual is depicted as part of the preparation sequence for the assassination mission, a ceremonial element involving ichor and collective practice that preceded the Coven's major undertakings. The Coven's formal identity is maintained through ritual observance and renewed through ceremony. Membership is confirmed through performed commitment, not just circumstance or birth. The Brendok Coven performs the rite of ascension, depicted in Episode 3 of The Acolyte, set in 148 BBY. The ceremony's elements, the coven chanting, "The power of many over the power of one." Young initiates, including May and Osha, taking formal oaths to preserve coven secrets, and the completion of the ritual marked by a symbol appearing on each initiate's forehead. That final element, a physical mark manifesting on the body at the moment of acceptance, gives the ceremony a visual transformation component that parallels the significance of Ventress's reinitiation in Clone Wars, where the green mist of the ceremony marks her changed status. Something changes physically at the moment the oath is completed. The body carries the evidence of the vow. Both covens have formal initiation ceremonies depicted on screen. Both involve a pledge structure. Both produce a visible, confirmed transformation of status, of standing, of physical marking at the ceremony's conclusion. The specific imagery and language differ. The architecture is identical. You commit yourself to the group in formal terms. The group confirms acceptance through ritual. Something marks the moment permanently. Count 6. Force-based life manipulation. Talzin's life manipulation abilities, confirmed across the Clone Wars run. She drained life force from Count Dooku through ritual, sufficiently to constitute a genuine threat to one of the most powerful Force users alive in that era. She restored Darth Maul's shattered sanity after years of feral existence, a psychological and psychic reconstruction of a being that had been functionally destroyed. She built him functioning cybernetic legs constructed from dead battle droid components. She physically transformed Savage Opress from a Nightbrother warrior into a Force-enhanced killing machine. The academic literature on Clone Wars describes this work as taking existing life and reshaping it at a fundamental level, beyond what training or augmentation can produce, through magic. She is also recorded as capable of resurrection, bringing back the dead, across multiple canon sources. The through line. Talzin treats life as a workable substance, restorable, transformable, drainable, revivable. The Force, for the Nightsisters, isn't primarily a spiritual connection or an extension of will into battle. It's a tool for doing specific things to living beings, and those specific things include rewriting the fundamental conditions of life and death. Mother Aniseya created twin daughters without a biological father. Using the thread and a Force vergence on Brendok, she generated new life inside Mother Coral. The Wikipedia entry on Mayho Aniseya confirms she is a Force-sensitive human female whose origin involves the Coven's Force manipulation. She also demonstrated mind control sufficient to directly possess a Jedi Padawan's consciousness, an ability confirmed in multiple covered sources, including CBR and comicbook.com. The directional difference between Talzin and Aniseya is real. Talzin manipulates existing life, restoring and transforming it. Aniseya creates new life where none existed. These are different applications. But the conceptual category, Force-based direct manipulation of the fundamental processes of living beings, outside Jedi or Sith frameworks, through ritual practice, is the same for both groups. Both treat life as a workable substrate. Both do things with the Force and living beings that no Jedi or Sith shown in the same eras approaches. This is also where the two active charges against the Acolyte converge. Aniseya creating the twins is simultaneously the action that undermines Plagueis' canonical uniqueness in Revenge of the Sith, and the action that echoes the Nightsisters' life manipulation tradition. The same creative decision generates two canonical injuries. The Brendok Coven is doing double duty, functioning as both a Plagueis continuity problem and a Nightsister structural reproduction, linked through the single power of Force-based life generation. Here is where the prosecution has to be precise, because there is a direct quote in the record that challenges the sharpest version of this argument, and a credible case doesn't hide from it. In an Entertainment Weekly interview published in connection with the Brendok flashback episodes, Leslie Headland said, "I was very inspired by the Nightsisters storyline and the Ventress storyline on the Clone Wars when I was a budding writer." She said it. It's sourced, it's documented, it's in EW. Any framing that depends on Headland having denied the Nightsisters, concealed her source material, or pretended they don't exist, collapses at the first citation. She didn't pretend they don't exist. She credited them explicitly as a formative influence on her development as a writer. So the charge adjusts to what the evidence actually supports, which is more damaging in its own way. Inspired by is supposed to do creative transformation work. You absorb a concept, it enters your development, and through your own thinking and combination with other influences, it emerges as something genuinely new. The source material is recognizable as a starting point, not the destination. Inspiration is traceable, but the result is original. That's what the word promises, and it's what inspired by is supposed to mean in the context of creative attribution. The IndieWire interview Hedlund gave listed her aesthetic influences for The Acolyte as J-horror, binge culture television structure, and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. External, non-Star Wars cinematic touchstones for the show's visual identity and pacing. When she identified the Star Wars native source for the coven structure, the specific citation was the Nightsisters. She knew exactly where the structural template came from. The show then built a coven carrying that template across 6 independently verifiable categories of comparison, while the promotional apparatus described the result as a fresh contribution to the franchise. Then there's this. In a separate interview, Hedlund discussed Mother Aniseya's transformation scene and said, "I believe that Aniseya is transforming herself and May into the Force in a way that doesn't kill them." The phrase is, "I believe." That is Leslie Hedlund, creator of Mother Aniseya, expressing genuine uncertainty about her own character's mechanics. Not a confident differentiation from the source material. Not a clear account of how Aniseya's thread-based abilities differ mechanically from Talzin's Ichor system. Just, "I believe this is what's happening." A creator who had absorbed the source material thoroughly enough to rebuild its structure from memory, and remained uncertain about the mechanics inside it. The Geeks and Gamers headline on that interview reads, "Leslie Hedlund admits she doesn't really understand the Acolyte's space witches either." That's not a framing put on the story by a hostile outlet. That's the headline a writer produces when the creator of a group says, "I believe," about a power her own character is performing on screen. The promotional language around the show compounded this problem without apparently noticing it. Screen Rant described the Brendok coven's smoke transformation as a unique force power that was previously used by the Nightsisters. The Wikipedia entry on the Brendok coven addresses the comparison directly. It includes language noting that fans mistake the coven as a possible splinter group using dark magic such as the Nightsisters, and provides clarification distinguishing them as separate organizations. When official Star Wars reference material has to issue active disambiguation, noting that your new creation isn't the existing creation it strongly resembles, the resemblance has become the primary interpretive response to the new creation. Wikipedia doesn't write disclaimers about groups that feel distinct. It writes them about groups where the default audience response is, "Wait, isn't this just the other one?" Hedlund acknowledged the Nightsisters. The production proceeded to deliver something that looks like the Nightsisters across 6 structural categories. The Nightsisters weren't suppressed. They were cited. And then the work reproduced them, and the promotional coverage called the reproduction unique. The 6 parallel exhibits establish creative reproduction. The timeline placement turns a creative argument into a canonical one. The Brendok Coven's flashback is set in 148 BBY. The Clone Wars, where Mother Talzin leads the Nightsisters, is set during 22 to 19 BBY. The gap between the Brendok Coven's active period and the Nightsisters' canonical on-screen debut is approximately 126 years. The Brendok Coven predates the Nightsisters in the Star Wars timeline by 126 years. In strict in-universe terms, this creates no contradiction. No canon source establishes the Brendok Coven as a Nightsister precursor. No connective tissue links them in the canonical record. Wikipedia's entry makes this explicit. They are distinct organizations, addressed in separate articles, with the similarity requiring official clarification precisely because the groups aren't officially connected. In the Star Wars universe, these are simply 2 different covens at 2 different points in the same long timeline. Both can exist. Neither eliminates the other. The Nightsisters traditions are old enough to predate both settings. The in-universe logic doesn't generate the canonical injury. The viewer experience does. Those are two different arguments, and only one of them lands. Disney actively promotes experiencing Star Wars in chronological timeline order. That framing, go from the earliest story point and move forward through the history, is the company's own recommended approach to navigating a franchise that now spans millennia of in-universe time. A viewer who follows that guidance will encounter the Brendok coven before the Nightsisters. They will see the matriarchal Force Witch coven on an isolated planet, led by a woman formerly titled Mother, with mist transformation powers and Force-based life manipulation, performing initiation ceremonies, living in deliberate separation from galactic governance. They will absorb this as the franchise's established template for this kind of group. Then, they will reach the Clone Wars, set 126 years later. And there are the Nightsisters. That viewer's honest first response isn't discovery, it's recognition. There was another coven, earlier. Talzin is doing what Aniseya did. Same title, same isolation, same smoke trick, now in green instead of black. The Nightsisters read as the reprise. For 13 years, January 7th, 2011 to June 4th, 2024, the Nightsisters had exclusive occupancy of that creative territory within Star Wars canon. The matriarchal Force Witch Coven on the blood-red Outer Rim planet, led by the woman called Mother, who dissolves into green smoke and can restructure life itself. That was their specific claim within the franchise's imaginative geography. The Clone Wars built them across multiple seasons into something with genuine depth. Talzin's tragedy, Ventress's arc of exile and return, the genocide of massacre, Talzin's final confrontation in Son of Dathomir. These weren't background details. They were substantive storytelling with consequences across the broader franchise. Talzin remains one of the most compelling characters the animated series produced, and the Clone Wars arc that introduced the Nightsisters is some of the stronger world-building the franchise has done. The Acolyte placed a structurally identical group 126 years upstream in that timeline, in a show marketed as fresh and original. The Nightsisters didn't lose anything from their canonical record. Their episodes are intact, their character arcs remain, their place in the franchise is unchanged in the technical sense. But the franchise now contains a near-identical group in an earlier chronological position. Official reference material had to write a disclaimer. Promotional coverage accidentally confirmed the prior source while calling the reproduction unique. The creator expressed uncertainty about the mechanics of the power she built from that source, and any viewer who watches the franchise in the order Disney recommends will encounter the Brendok Coven first, absorb their complete structural profile, and then meet the Nightsisters 126 years later in the story. And the Nightsisters will be the ones who need explaining. 6 counts, all confirmed in primary materials. January 7th, 2011. Nightsisters airs, Season 3, Episode 12. A matriarchal force cult on a remote Outer Rim planet, led by Mother Talzin, who dissolves into green smoke in Season 4, Episode 19, and can restore a shattered Sith Lord from the inside out. 13 years of franchise occupancy across Clone Wars, Rebels, comics, games, and streaming content. A specific creative territory established and maintained. June 4th, 2024. The Acolyte premieres. Episode 3, Destiny. Flashback to 148 BBY. A matriarchal force coven on a remote, assumed uninhabited planet, led by Mother Aniseya, who dissolves into black smoke and created twin daughters through force-based life generation, presiding over the rite of ascension, oaths, chanting, a symbol appearing on each initiate's forehead. All confirmed in official primary sources. Leslie Headland credited the Nightsisters as her direct inspiration. That acknowledgement is documented and real, and the prosecution doesn't need to argue otherwise. What the Brendok Coven demonstrates is that the inspiration arrived and largely remained intact. The structure preserved, the names changed, the smoke recolored, the Zabrak's social position inverted. She was very inspired by the Nightsisters. 6 parallel exhibits suggest that very inspired is a precise description. The injury isn't to canonical continuity in the strict sense. The Nightsisters have their history, their episodes, their character arcs, their place in the franchise. The injury is to originality, something the Clone Wars earned across multiple seasons of genuine world-building, producing a matriarchal force cult with real depth, and a leader in Talzin, who stands among the better characters the franchise has made. That earned creative territory now has a structural reproduction sitting upstream in the timeline, in a show marketed as doing something new. The Brendok coven reproduced the Nightsisters framework, and placed the reproduction 126 years earlier in the franchise timeline. Within the Star Wars experience as it now exists, the Nightsisters arrived second. The original became the iteration. The prior claim became the one that requires the disclaimer. That's the verdict. Subscribe for more cases like this.